Alright, hello there. Let me drop everything real fast first. Got my little headset on, so hopefully I don't have to completely super project for this, because it doesn't seem like something that should be projected too much for. So for today on this guy, what I want to do is paper cranes. I am not in any way, shape, or form a master of this. A couple of them might get on me a little wonky. I got a little special fin, little Nemo fin on this guy here a little bit. But for those of you who are more adept at little fine motory things like that than I am, this might be fun. They're therapeutic for me at one point in time, and yeah, I just thought it'd be something a little bit different than a lot of the physical stuff and everything. So changing it up a little bit. I actually have still a couple packets of actual origami paper from before Packetans went out of business. A little moment of silence for Packetans there. And and then what I did before a couple years ago, when I did the whole, make 1,000 of them thing that has stories made about it. I sometimes also took copy paper and cut it into squares. So I measured squares. You want these to be square. These ones I think are specifically 6 inches, just a little under 6 inches, so 5 7/8 inches, so just a hair below 6 inches for this. So they're squares. You can just have plain white. These have some of these little designs on it. And I'll walk through this kind of the best I'm able to have. I've actually looked through a couple different, sort of written pictorial directions, and watched a few videos on this. Had to kind of watch a couple of them to kind of refresh myself, because after I did the 1,000 thing, I stopped doing it for like a year, and then I did a couple more, and then I stopped doing it, and then I did a couple more. The past week I've made 5 or 6 just to kind of refresh it. Just sort of gave me an idea for this. And let's angle in a little bit more. We're not going to need Monsieur le Mousse or pug hair or cat hair or any of this other stuff. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, I'm going to try and keep the pattern out. So if you do just cut everything into squares and it's just plain white, that's fine. Try and remember to pick a side that's out. Maybe you draw something on the one side, maybe you draw a little something else that's on the inside. You can also use this for trying to think how to say it without getting weird. Just sort of positive affirmations, I guess, for lack of a better, or lack of a less freaking people out descriptions. Just like a positive affirmation, draw a picture, any of that other stuff for it. So pick which side if you're a blank, and we're going to fold it in half flat. And this is a good place to practice some mindfulness, because you do want a certain exactingness about this. You do want things to be lined up kind of on point, or else you get some wonkiness with the bird that you make, or whatever origami thing that you're going to make. And make nice good creases on it. Trust me, a nice clean tight crease is going to help later. So you open it back up. Now fold it flat the other way. Again, lining up all the edges. Very nice and tight there. I don't know which accent I was going for, so sort of 3 or 4 together. And that's very nice. Alright, so we open it up. We should have a nice, almost sort of little grid here. Just a main 2x2 grid. Now what we're going to do is rotate it 45 degrees. There's your geometry. We're going to fold it in half along the point-to-point center line. So when we fold it, we want to have, again, lining up the points and the edges. we want to have a triangle. Again, tightening it up. That one might be a little wonky, but that's fine. It's almost sort of like a Bob Ross project. No mistakes, just happy little accidents, and whatever you make here is just for you, and it's original to you and for you there. You create it however you want. So, and we open it back up. I'll stop. We open it back up and do the same thing again to the other side. So making another wee little triangle. Beep, beep, beep. And across. Tighten it up, tighten it up. So you don't have to open it now, but just for an example, if you do open it up, catch the sunlight a little bit, you see you got these eighths that we're going in. So next thing we do here is we take the little triangle. Now you see this crease here. It could be either side. I tend to kind of go one side to the other just to make it consistent. And consistency for me is a little bit easier to kind of remember the steps. So we take that. I like to push in from the crease, the seam, and push in. So, and then as we have here, that kind of weird flat pit along the crease to where all the points come in together here at the end. What are you doing? Hey, get off there. Yeah. So I just realized I just yelled in this microphone because I forgot I was wearing it. I'm very sorry right now. I'm very sorry indeed. So, pinching that. So we're going to have this weird sort of wonky shape here, almost like a really lame truck, I guess. We want to get rid of that by doing the same thing. What we do to one side, we do to the other. So we had geometry. There's your algebra. We all know I do like algebra. So we're going to push this side in as well. Fold it together. Pinching that off. So now we have, you can think of it as a square. I always think of it as a diamond because I want this seam from top to bottom. That's what I want to work with here next. So the next thing we want to do is, so I have my seam going this way, the other ends are pointing straight to me, so I still have a diamond shape. Now this, they can open along these ends here, yes? Hopefully that's what you have. So we want to take one side, now not the whole side, not the whole side where I'm folding it in like this, only to show you here, only like this part here, not the whole side, just that little quarter of it. I'm going to take that quarter, and again, you can do it either way, away from you, to you, away from you. I go in, out. And I'm taking this edge right along that center seam. You don't want to get right on top of it because then you're going to, when we have to do the same thing to the other side, you're going to mess up the other side with it. You want to go just up to it, like standing right outside a threshold. If you're like one of those lame vampires that can't go into someone's house without being invited. So we do the same thing we did here. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. And derp, right in, close to the seam, almost up to it. And you want to try and make each side as even close to that seam as you can. Kind of have that little hair on one side. You want to make that hair on the other side as even to it as you can. So we did it both sides on this side. We do it both sides on the other side. So flip it. And then the same thing over there, bringing the edge up to the seam. I was going to play music with this, but I didn't know if I put anything on if I would be sued. So I decided to skip it. So when you're all done, you should have this like kite type figure, both sides mirroring as best as you can able to make it. It's kind of what it looks like from the top. I'm sorry I'm stiffly, it's just half my face collapsing and horrible allergies and sinuses for my entire life. So you have this kite, K-I-T-E type thing. Now what we want to do, which is really helpful. Now, not all the different things I've seen has done this or talked about this. And if they have, they've done it in like this weird other way. This is the easiest, simplest way I've done it or I've found to do it. So you take the top, and right along where the tops of this part is, that's going to be your new seam for this top. So you fold it in. Again, I go towards me on this. It's just easier like that. But I also lift it up and then make the seam go the other way as well. That might be a little weird to see it now, but it makes sense towards the end. So we have these seams all nice and tight for that. Now what we're going to do is take the one side, open the flaps out, and again, just this little top sheet part of it, open this up. So we're going to peel it back. Peel it back. You gotta kind of work with your seams on this one. Work with your seams, and then once you open it, so it's almost like a little coin purse kind of thing. So once you have that, and you want to lay it flat, and again press down the seams. And then what you do to one side, flip it, do to the other. So you open the flaps, just that first little layer, it's that first layer. It's on here like this, and open it up, make like the little coin purse, flatten it out. Might be a little picky about this for myself. I cannot just slam these out. Even when I was making, I think I maxed out at like 30 or 30 something a day when I did the 1,000 of them. It was still taking me a little while to do them, just because part of it is because I get a little picky about how this goes, and even with that, there are adjustments. As you could, I don't know if you could tell, I just kind of had to make an adjustment on the seam here to try and even this out a little bit. It's kind of hard to pinch on this plastic thing. I don't really have anything else to use. And at this point, I just sort of realign some of the creases. Now, as you can tell, there's a little bit of off center there with that. And again, that's okay. These aren't going to a museum. They're not getting sold or anything like that. I'm just making them for my own edification and see if you guys want to do this too. So the next bit here is going to make it so we're going to invert this. So we're going to take this and the fold and do this. But before we do that, I want you to notice something. You see how in this first part here, we've got these two almost like little kicking legs. But once we take that fold from the middle, this part's the two kicking little legs. So it's on my left, your right of the screen, I think. So if we go back to that original, it's kind of flat, yes? So what I want to do here to make the last little part of definition easier, so on this previously done one, the head and the tail, to make that easier, so to make a tighter tail, easier to work with head, and delineate it from the wider wings. Again, you can tell there's a little bit of a difference in the size there at the wings. But to make this easier, what I do here, so again, on the flat part, not the kicky legs, the flat part. Remember what we did earlier where we brought the stuff into the center? It's similar to that, except much smaller. So I'm only going to take this little edge part here, fold it in just a tiny bit, again, like that little 1/8 inch that we're kind of playing with in some of these different ways. And I'll show you here in just a second. So you see how that's just a tiny little crease. Just a tiny little crease there, a little happy crease. A little tiny little crease there with that. That's what I want to do. It's going to make the head and the tail easier to work with when we get to that last bit, which is coming up very shortly. So again, what you do to one side, you do the other. We're going to flip it and do the same thing again on the other two sides. So all four sides are going to have that really fine, fine, wait, fine, where am I from? I say fine. A really fine crease here. And maybe just pinch that little end a little bit. That might make the tail or the head a little easier. So I did both sides here, flip. And this is where having like weird, thick paw fingers. They kind of have paws. They're kind of shorter and thicker. And he's kind of like real, like, I don't know, like, they're not even fingers. They're just sort of like weird sticks. I'm like 6 foot, and my hands should be much longer or larger than they are, but they're not. They're sort of these short, stubby little guys. So it makes some of this fine tuning a little difficult. Sometimes it makes playing guitar difficult as well. Well, let me rephrase that. It pretty much always makes guitar more difficult. So on all four sides here, we've got that nice little crease. Now, here's when that previous thing that I talked about, the inverting of it. So we're here, take these little edges and reverse it. So here we have, again, I want to tighten up these seams, tighten up the seams. And no foolish wand waving or silly incantations in this class. As such, we're going to make little wings. So if you're looking at it from the bottom, this should be the flat side. We lift these up on each side. So there's kind of a spot. Again, there's that crease that we made in the beginning, the top one that I said some places don't. This is where one of the places this kind of comes in handy, is because you can use that as the pivot to bring these all up. So we kind of have all 4 points pointing the same way. And again, another little triangle, making the seam tight. I'm always amazed how much my animals can smell the same things again and again for 10, 12 years, or 8 in her case. So we have the tops. Now these sides we can split back down. So split back down. Again, I'm going to fold part way down into the body. So you can see where the bottom of it is. There's my seam, my crease, almost to the bottom part, but not all the way. Yeah, stop it. Open that up. So here we have the head and the tail. Now, sometimes, for me at least, one of these is a little bit better than the other ones. And with that, you can kind of see how you want to make the head. So take just a little pinch, maybe an inch, half an inch or so of the top of one side, whichever side you choose. And, excuse me, fold it in into the sort of crevice or seam. Lift it back out. There's your head. Now what you can do is pull the head and pull the tail out. Sometimes it's a little easier for me than others. Again, not an expert. He said he's an expert. They're not. All over the place. Harry Potter, Hobbit, all that good stuff there. So this is a serviceably passable little paper crane. Now, one of the things we're going to do, if you make a lot of these, and you can kind of use them as decoration, or if you did put some of those affirmations or wishes or something inside of them, those positive thoughts, everything you can do, you can take something, punch a little hole. What I did is I had a needle and some thread, a lot of thread, and I punched a little hole in this top part, ran the thread through each of them, and I made garlands, basically, so, hanging strings. Wasn't super pretty, because that wasn't kind of the point, but I made like kind of these garlands. I hung them outside there, to sort of taped them and secured them onto the siding, and they were up there for, I don't know, up there for like a year and a half sort of thing. So some paper is going to be better, but there's some places where their traditions have it that they have like prayer flags or something like that, and they hang them out. And over time, the elements, the wind, the rain, the water, even snow in some instances, in some places, will tear them down over time. If you've seen big flags waving and there's like parts ripped up and it's got little streamers coming off it that it shouldn't have. That's the weathering of it. And the weathering of it, once that's complete, that kind of takes those well wishes and those ideas and that positive energy or prayer work or whatever you want to do for it, kind of takes them up into the world. So you can do that with it as well. Or you sort of make them and have them on a thing, just somewhere. It's also a little neat. I've used them for as part of like birthday or Christmas present too. If I got someone like a book or something like that, just kind of strung one of those on it, or if I get little gift bags and you do that, put like one or two in there. It's a sort of, for you have to pick your person for it because there might be some people, go like, oh, great, you just gave me a folded vest. Hey. And there's some people they're like, oh, that's cute. So you want to make sure you judge the it right. So you get the, oh, that's cute people with it. So that is a not entirely concise or fast way to fold a paper crane. But I know it's a little bit longer than I usually take, but I do like to have it kind of broken down for that. So, and there's a lot of other things that I've seen, especially on just the diagrams or the written instructions, that isn't really broken down like that. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully, if you like doing it, great. If you watch this and be like, I don't care about paper cranes, fine, don't make it. It's just an option for it, especially in this sort of time of. I'm going to leave some of the other words I use about this. Lockdown happening. It's just maybe a little crafty thing to do, pass some time. You get good at it. Maybe you teach other people, parents or siblings or cousins or friends or whomever you might be kind of hanging out with. And, maybe you do the 1,000 crane sort of challenge. I hate using that word. Everything's a bloody internet challenge now. Just, 1,000 cranes sort of uh, spell's not quite the right word either. But, just making 1,000 cranes is sort of traditional thing. Um, and maybe you make it as a group, as a family group instead of just one person doing that or something. So there are options. And then maybe if it's a springboard up for other things, origami-ish as well. So hope you enjoyed it, or at least were, somewhat mildly entertained for the past 23 plus minutes. And that might be all we can get in this day and age. So signing off. Sayonara.